Hey guys, let's discuss how we can work on some things to break past the shapes or the patterns that you've come up with when learning the guitar. Now for me, the way that I've learned the fretboard, as far as like with scales and the arpeggios, is really come from the 5 shapes. If you're unsure what the 5 shapes are, there's a link below from musiclessons.com where I'll have that. You can check that out. I go through it, ways that I see it. It's written out, there's PDFs for it, and also ways that I practice it. But let's say you know what this is, the 5 shapes. So it's kind of related to the cage system. I see it a little bit different though. Regardless, you have, whether you use this method or not, you go through and you learn the shapes on the guitar. And then when it comes time to improvise, I think that we all find ourselves in a very similar predicament. And that starts to become this limited way of being able to play or actually improvise over the tune, or not just a tune, but just a key center in general, like just choosing C, for example, if I was just playing in the key of C. So what usually happens is we start to improvise and we notice that we're locked into one shape. And I highly recommend that you do that. You explore just one shape. So you could take the notes just within, for me, this is going to be shape 5 in the key of C, and I start playing around with it. Now, if you're just starting out with this and you're trying to improvise, a common thing that you'll find yourself doing probably is running down here into the lower register, because this is how we usually practice our scales. We start from the lower register and move our way to the upper register and come back down. So when you start to improvise, you may find yourself doing that. So what I'm going to have you do is to try this. Go to the upper register of the shape. In this case, what I'm going to have is 5 notes available to me because I'm only going to choose string number 2 and string number 1. Okay? So the goal is breaking past the shapes that I've learned. So if I know that I have shape 5 here and shape 6 here in the key of C, what I want to be able to do is not just look at it as, well, here's shape 6, here's shape 5. I want to be able to mesh those two together. One of the ways that I found very useful in breaking this down is to limit it to the 2 strings on top and start to improvise and combine these, like just running in and out between them. So you're going to find that you're going to get back into those patterns or shapes that you've already learned, and that's fine. And at least for now, it's okay if you're doing that, because that's what you're used to doing, and it helps you to establish where the correct notes are that you want to play. Now, the challenge or the goal is to push beyond that. So let me give you an example. I'm going to have a drone C in the background, and I'm going to play in and out between these 2 shapes and give you a couple ideas to try out. So what I have is the drone in the back, and what I'm going to do this time instead is maybe focus just on the 1 string, string number 1. So I know that this note works in shape 5. Here's shape 6, and this is also a note that works in shape 6 as well. So they share this common tone of an A. If I look at string number 2, let's go ahead and jump to that really quick. String number 2, I have this note that works, this note that works, and this note. That's all within shape 5, but you notice that in shape 6 these 2 notes are also shared. So what I like to do instead, because we get so caught up in this thing of using specific fingerings for a scale, is to use only maybe 1 finger to play. And then maybe we jump in and out between the 2 strings. Now, what if we add maybe another finger to this? And then why not add another finger to it? So we're working with 3 fingers now. I even added a 4th finger in. So I'm using all 4 now. You could also bridge the gap between the two by finding new ways to connect them. So in the case of the first string, you did have this in shape 5, and then shape 6, but now what have you done this instead? 3 notes. So you're finding the distance here, or breaking that boundary that's created. For string number 2, it's a little bit more difficult to do that just because you're already kind of breaking it anyways. But in the first string, on the first string, you're noticing that you can break that division that's occurring. Now the next step is to bring in another string. Hit a B flat there for a moment, don't mind that. So what I may start to do now is think more about some intervallic things as I'm playing. What I start to do is go in and out between the strings. Starting to add the 4th string in now. Maybe the 5th string now. And even the 6th string. So this back and forth of going in and out between the shapes is breaking these barriers that you've established in your practice, and you're starting to see how they're combining or how to make them work, and maybe you're finding some different fingerings or ways to get from one to the next to play up and down the fretboard. Because that's the goal. The goal is to see it as one big area across the fretboard and not be limited by these boundaries that you've established in learning the shapes. And you can extend this further into taking shape 6, shape 6 and 7, and doing the same thing. So taking 2 shapes at a time and then going back and combining it. So now what if I go back and I combine 3 different areas of the fretboard? Let's try that. So now 3 areas of the fretboard. So I'm starting to go into another one too. Like, it's just this constant flow. And again, you can limit it to where you're doing maybe a couple strings instead of trying to do all 6. So if I stayed, maybe I put a limitation on myself of strings number 3 and 4. From there you can go on and you could find other connections between the last 2 shapes. Now of course, as with any of this, you got to take it through all 12 keys. At least for me, I find it important that you go through all 12 keys. That way you're not limited. And this also applies to not just the major scales like what we're doing, but if you're working on the pentatonic scales, harmonic minor, the melodic minor, any of the other scales that you're working on, even working on things like your arpeggios and playing up and down the fretboard. So it's very important to find these connections. Really give yourself some time to explore it. Don't just play around with it for a day or two. Take it to the extreme and get to the point to where it's just automated like that, where you can go in and out between the shapes, and that way you have no boundaries that are separating you from exploring the whole spectrum of the guitar neck. Alright guys, I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to check the description below. musiclessons.com link is there. We'll find lessons and courses that I offer, as well as links to the gear that I use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.